There is nothing happening in the sports world, and Aaron Rodgers decided to jump on ESPN, talk a little football, clarify his marriage, and use the word wife, which I think was very significant in that interview. Remind everybody that nobody should care, and kind of get, going to be very honest, a lot of us very excited about what's to come in 2025 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot to dive into. We'll break it down into different parts here as we move forward, but I'll ask you a general question to start things off. Your biggest takeaway, your outlook on Rodgers on the McAfee show, outside of the fact that there are more pictures of him on the beach. And I'm not going to lie to you, I don't even know where my Bluetooth headphones are these days, because ever since they started popping up, I'm nothing but cords all the time. Something about them just had me switch. I couldn't tell you what. What was your biggest takeaway?
He's going back to stereo, folks. But my biggest takeaway from all of this is that I believe Aaron Rodgers is all in a way that I maybe had doubted a couple of weeks ago whenever he first signed his contract with the organization. I think we knew this was, going to be kind of the last year, the last hurrah for Aaron Rodgers, but how much does he have left in the tank? I had no clue. No one does. And we still don't fully know, but I think that he is determined to go out, in a winning fashion. What exactly does that look like? Again, we don't know, but I think he is more all in. The stuff about him getting people out to Malibu, that's sort of like more time off the field connecting with the rest of his new teammates. There's a lot that I heard that made me feel like he is taking a lot of steps to bring the locker room together and be a part of a winning sort of recipe in Pittsburgh for the 2025 season. So overall, very positive. I do have to say, aside from him, what I would call complaining about being too much in the limelight, like, I got this little violin for you. If you're, maybe he can buy
highest
an extra
paid NFL
pillow.
player of all time.
Yeah.
Of all time.
Oh.
Of all time.
So
yeah, I agree with you. I think that it's a big, I don't know. I got fired up. Like, listening to it, I just felt like the energy was right. That, maybe it was Tone Diggs saying things like the city of Pittsburgh appreciated you saying us instead of me, and winning 7 instead of the final one, you're second. I don't know. Aaron Rodgers to me seems like an all-in guy. It seems like, as we dove into this stuff, and I don't know him personally, so I know nothing outside of public appearances, even ones I was in attendance for. It felt as if coming into all this, I was very interested to learn who Aaron Rodgers is, and I am very interested to learn who Aaron Rodgers is, but I thought it was going to go a little differently than what it is so far. So far, it's a very team-friendly, I'm the guy, I'm the quarterback, I understand what that means, and I'm going to do what I need to do as a quarterback, fully understands the business of it and what his abilities are, what his role is, how important his role is, and the things he needs to do in it. And that is not what I thought was going to happen in my first impression with Aaron Rodgers. So I got to say, I am fired up. There are a couple of things that he talked about that really had me fired up when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, where things are. They'll meet in Malibu, a couple of them. I would imagine that's Calvin Austin, DK Metcalf, who's working out at UCLA, probably Pat Freiermuth, maybe Roman Wilson makes his way out there as well.
Probably Cordero Patterson.
Maybe Cordero Patterson. I think, to be honest, his discussions on guys like Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington and the tight ends, most fired up, most excited I've been about the possibility of those guys and what they can do in years. And it really does, like, we could talk and he's going to say it 4 billion times. Mercedes Lewis. Darnell reminds me of Mercedes Lewis. Yeah, I get it. It is the first time in a long time, and really Pat's entire career outside of the 1 year with Ben, where you're looking at it going, there's a quarterback here that's going to use the tight ends. The tight ends are going to be very significant. And to be honest with you, I could see, and I tried to say it last year, that Pat was going to have a breakout season. It might be time to really start hyping that train up again. The tight ends is the position group that stood out to me. Anything that stood out to you player-wise? I mean, he spoke a lot about a lot of different things. DK Metcalf was obviously a big one as well. Jalen and Caleb. Your thoughts on the tight ends after Aaron, and Who else you're fired up about after today?
Well, I can't help but to agree with Aaron Rodgers about the comparison with Darnell Washington. I think you just having a big body like him that a team knows how to properly utilize is going to pay dividends for the Steelers offense. I'm certainly I've been a supporter of Pat Freiermuth. I've been wanting to see this breakout all-pro season from him ever since he first came into the league, but it does feel more possible. It feels within, you know, within reaching distance. It feels like maybe that could we see Pat Freiermuth hit, somewhere around double digits in touchdowns if everything goes according to plan? I don't know, but I think we are getting the sense that there are higher expectations emerging and creeping up for the Steelers in 2025 the closer we get to training camp. The other thing that really stood out to me, I don't know if you were going to jump into this, so forgive me, but it stood out to me that Rodgers said openly that he and Tomlin were talking. I think it was weekly or I forget the exact verbiage that he used, but they
Yeah.
were speaking very often, let's call it, throughout the entire process, going back from his visit, cruising in on the back roads to all the way to signing.
Yeah.
So, the fact that there is a relationship there, and it tells me that they have been planning, they have been in communication, obviously, and they have been, on the same page for months about what they expect and what they are going to do for the 2025 season. So that sticks out to me as sort of maybe an advantage that we didn't even consider because we were wondering, is anything even done yet or official? But maybe they were already, making their war plan, so to speak, behind the scenes.
I agree. I think that's huge. Like that's my thing on the Rodgers was maybe didn't have the playbook in his hands, but was aware of the situation. The Steelers were aware of the situation. Arthur Smith was planning for Aaron Rodgers to show up and to be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like to me, having that preparation, having that time, that ability, that understanding gave them a head start on a situation that everybody is worried about. It took too long. Like you missed some very important steps along the way. But I do think that having that is huge. I also think that, it's wild because Mike T and Omar Khan tend to, I don't want to say lie, fib the media every once in a while, which, it's fun. It's a fun cat and mouse here. It's a good time.
Yeah.
In them saying continuously, yeah, there's been, we're talking constant communication, blah, blah, blah. You're just going, no, there's not. And there were reports of silence. I mean, I think it's pretty revealing that this was exactly how they said it was, that Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers were checking in and talking as if this was going to happen for a long time. And when it finally came together and Aaron was on a place where, again, I don't think that, I really do think that when he went into this, it was, I have to see what happens in my personal life before I could actually say yes or no to a football team. And the Steelers understood that while also understanding that chances were it was going to work out where Aaron's going to be on a football team in 2025. To me, sticking together, kind of working through that, I mean, it just shows that both sides are very committed, which again shows me that Aaron Rodgers is super committed to the situation. Plus, did you catch him say 2-a-day workouts? The dude's 41 years old doing 2-a-day work. My calf right now, okay? Every chance, I'm just sitting here under the desk, just stretching it out the whole time for how brutal the pain is from doing nothing. I golfed 2 days ago, 9 holes. It wasn't even hard. Absolutely wild, the 2-a-day workouts. But I agree with you with Mike Tomlin. Will Howard is the other big one here. Will Howard and his words. I mean, to me, he spoke very highly of Will, but what stood out was not what he sees in Will or who Will is, because I think all of those things are already there and we're aware of. It's the almost like a challenge that he presented to himself to get Will to a place where he is the next guy. We've had these conversations. We've had people who have fired back at us, and we have had to disagree with on Will could be the guy with time under Aaron Rodgers. I think today is the first time that I viewed it differently than Aaron's just going to be a mentor. And I truly did look at it. And my understanding now is that Aaron really embraces this as a challenge, which to me, I don't know, maybe puts him on a bigger pedestal, gives him a little bit of a head start, I would say. Did it do the same for you? Because to be honest, I mean, I was fired up about what it was the first, and I've used fired up too many times in this podcast. I was going to say excited, but that's just what it is. Like, it's the first time that I really viewed Will Howard in that situation totally different than, he's a 6th round rookie and Aaron Rodgers is cool and probably going to help him, but how much could he help him? Maybe a lot.
I can certainly understand the optimism growing there, truly. I think this is unfortunately where my optimism started to kind of fade. Not that I don't think this is possible, not that I don't think Will Howard is capable. Again, we're not to rehash the same conversation that we have had and will continue to have surrounding the Steelers' recent 6th round pick. All that being said, I like that Aaron Rodgers clearly was trying to, in my estimation, set a very optimistic sort of like agenda and like set mindset in this sort of hiatus until training camp. I think part of that is incorporating this rookie quarterback who a lot of people see potential in, a lot of people see a lot of upside in, and a future with the organization. I don't know how much, once the season gets started, that challenge remains a priority for Rodgers and the rest of the team. I think the priorities drastically shift to winning football games, and I think making sure your 6th round pick is up to speed and sort of in place to take over the keys to the car is way down the priority list once the season actually starts. For right now, it's incredible. It's wonderful that this sort of mentorship bond is continuing to grow at a nice sort of steady pace. But it didn't get me as, fired up as you. There were lots of this conversation that did, elicit optimism for me. This particular part was not one of them.
Okay. Well,
I'm sorry.
I don't have a response to that one. You look at Will Howard right now, to me, I hope turns into something. It does not. Again, like, let's not sit here and think that it changes the plans of 2026 in the NFL draft. To me, it's just like, look at, I think that Aaron Rodgers is a guy that's won a Super Bowl, 4 MVPs. He's the highest paid NFL player, of all time in the existence of the NFL, which is wild. And he's saying, hey, this season I want to win a Super Bowl and I want Will Howard to be great. Okay, well, that's awesome. You want to know who I don't think is going to be great because he didn't say his name? Skylar Thompson. And I just, I'll say one name that didn't get as much airtime today as I thought. Tell me if I'm looking too far into this. Calvin Austin didn't come up almost once.
That is disappointing. It's especially disappointing for this podcast who, we did start the #1 fan club for Calvin Austin. You can, catch my news blast coming out daily. Just kidding. But I think it was disappointing that he's, maybe not in the first sentence, like the immediate, sort of first couple of words from Rodgers, but, I'm not losing hope yet. I think there is so much for Calvin Austin to still prove on the football field that it almost is sort of another galvanizing moment. It's another sort of like way to encourage him or motivate him to, step up into that #2 role. It is still totally up in the air. It is completely up for grabs. And so, he may not be the #2 offensive threat in Pittsburgh right now, but he could be in a month or two's time. And I think the challenge is being laid out for him further here.
I agree. Did you catch his, and then we'll move on after this one. Did you catch his little dig at the Pittsburgh Steelers? Kind of a hint that TJ Watt is, coming back, getting a deal. Once we get our future Hall of Famer, Defensive Player of the Year linebacker back. I was like, oh, Aaron, what you know, pal? He knows everything everybody else knows, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to get a deal done with TJ Watt. Shout out to Aaron Rodgers. To be honest, dude, shout out to Aaron Rodgers. Today was a good for June 24th, when there's nothing. I was literally in a meeting where we were talking about how there is nothing happening, and we just got to ride the wave of coast it out, go on vacation with your family, sleep a little bit, you know what I mean? Whatever you got to do before training camp. Aaron Rodgers is giving us life, and I'm going to be honest, very appreciative. Very appreciated